All right, Mitch. Lot to break down here. It's a Tuesday morning. Should be like a sleepy morning. Not a whole lot going on. Coming up Monday Night Football. But all of a sudden, the news breaks. Shane Waldron is out as the offensive coordinator. Not a big surprise.
No.
Anytime news is breaking, we've got to get to it, especially when it comes to the effects on a rookie quarterback. And a quarterback, Let's face it, that the vast majority, not everyone, but the vast majority viewed as a transformational talent in Caleb Williams. What's interesting to me is like the first 3 weeks of the season, as Jaden Daniels is going like this, skyrocketing. His performance has been excellent, right? We saw Caleb kind of sputter in the beginning. But then after, I think, week 3, we saw a lot of progress, playing within the system, more decisive, showing that he understands where his eyes should be, going through his reads, feet more comfortable, right? That lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so there we are about week 6. But all of a sudden there was this regression. It was like, 2 steps forward. And then over time, it became 3 or 4 steps back. And it really hit a valley, if you will, this past week against the New England Patriots. And we could go through all the stats. I don't think we need to. It was ugly. The one stat that I'll say, and it was in part the offensive scheme, in part this offensive line that has struggled to protect all week, and in part on Caleb Williams from holding on the ball too long as a result of not trusting his reads and having a great feel inside of his offensive system. 9 sacks.
9 sacks.
9 sacks. Throughout my career, and I know throughout your career, watching rookie quarterbacks come in, and whenever they're taking that number of hits, whenever they're not comfortable in the pocket, you can see a regression in the confidence. And we saw it over the last several weeks with Caleb Williams, and it was never more obvious than this painstaking game against the New England Patriots. Good defense, not an elite defense.
No.
And then you've got Drake May on the other side, who sat the first several weeks behind Jacoby Brissett, who, everyone said, we're not going to play him as a rookie. That's not our plan. He's a first-round quarterback. We see that plan get trashed more often than not, the vast majority of the time with these rookie quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round. But you see Drake May, and he is a work in progress. There's no question. Not there as a passer yet. Not there in terms of making his reads. Big adjustment from what he did in 2023 at North Carolina to what he's doing in the NFL. His tape in 2022 was better than 2023. But it's very obvious to me, and maybe it's because we're here in New England, maybe you see a little bit more in terms of like local coverage and press conferences and just a little bit more exposure to him on a weekly basis. I see a young man in Drake May who's improving incrementally. And I said that I put out a tweet in the middle of the game, watching that game, also watching Jaden Daniels throughout the season, but in that same window on Sunday, and watching Bo Nix in that same window. Not his best game, but man, does he look like a quarterback who knows what is being asked of him, knows where to go with the football more often than not. And you can just see from week 1 to this past weekend, the development, the progress. And that's what you expect to see out of these rookie quarterbacks. And with Drake May, you can see he's comfortable in his own skin. And I know that's not something that shows up on the stat line, but I also know it's so critical. When quarterbacks have confidence, when they know when to run, when they have that running ability like Drake has, you can just see they're moving in the right direction in New England with Drake May. And it's not, no one's sitting there studying New England's offense as something that they want to emulate.
No.
Right?
No. I mean, when you look at the supporting casts, when you see who Caleb Williams has a wide receiver and you look at who Drake May has a wide receiver, I mean, it's night and day, man. That's why there was such high hopes, is that Chicago was in a great spot to bring in a young quarterback. They were built to win. They had an offense that could move the ball. They had guys that could make plays. And the dysfunction is obvious at this point. I mean, they're just not no one's on the same page. It feels like no one's on the same page. Protection, routes, the quarterback's not playing with any confidence. And again, the juxtaposition of Drake May without those kind of weapons, just trusting his instincts, finding guys late, making plays with his feet. And again, does he still have a long way to go? I mean, the week before I think it was Tennessee that he threw the interception at the end of the game, just kind of threw it up. made a great play at the end of the game to get into overtime, and then made a head scratcher to end the game on an interception. So,
but that's rookie stuff, right?
Right. That's just a guy who's developing. But again, he's not afraid to make the play. He's not afraid to let it loose. He's not afraid to let it rip. Like, and you see the for lack of a better term, that Chicago offense looks tight at times. They just look tight. Like no one
disjointed, right?
Someone needs to make a play. You know, you hear that in football all the time. Who's going to step up and make a play and get that momentum going our way and really get things to start to shift? And right now, there's a lot of everyone looking at each other to see who's going to do that.
How critical is this hire now?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm not talking about offensive coordinator. Tom Brown comes in. He's the interim OC.
Right.
There's not an expectation that anything is going to change or that he's going to be the solution. And God bless him if he is, then wonderful.
Great.
But even if it looks like things are really good and progressing at the end of the season, and you see Caleb start to play with more confidence and start to develop and grow, to me, that's not the answer. Eberflus is a really good defensive coach, but from the jump when they hired Shane Waldron, yeah, like he's done some decent stuff, did a nice job with Geno Smith in Seattle.
Right.
But I never was sold on this. I can remember talking to an executive at a different company who's a lifelong Bears fan. He asked me point blank this summer, "What do you think about Shane?" I was like, I'm not going to sit here and say negative things, but I know this for a fact. If I'm running that organization and I'm bringing in a quarterback who's supposed to be the savior, who's a generational talent, I'm not entrusting Shane Waldron to be that guy to develop him. And so here we are, right? And the writing's on the wall. Ben Johnson makes the most sense to me as the replacement head coach moving forward.
If you can get him.
And there's reports, and I don't know how accurate all of this is, that Ben wanted the Chicago job. And that wasn't the case in the offseason. Comes back to Detroit. I'm interested to see this. If it was a team, really any other team besides Detroit, but a team that wasn't in the same division, in the same conference. And listen, his contract's up, I believe Ben Johnson's is, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, done a phenomenal job. Not good, phenomenal job with Jared Goff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
the whole offense, really, but yeah.
Yeah. And so there's nobody else that I would peg ahead of him that I could bring in terms of being my head coach moving forward.
Right.
But there's a grit, as Dan Campbell would say. There's a loyalty there, and so like while Ben may want that job, and if he decides it's his job, he'll go take it, and that'll be a great rivalry, right? Like Ben Johnson going up against Dan Campbell in the same division. But I just wonder if that's something he's willing to do with the amount of love and care that he's put into and has for this Detroit team. If he wants to face his division rival twice a year. And so that's a huge question moving forward. I talked when the news broke just like an hour ago. I made a call to one of our guys in the league just to try to get some perspective. It's always interesting to hear what personnel people from other organizations have to say about things like this. Not always positive, taking cuts when they can, because that's just the competitive nature of the NFL.
Right.
We had an interesting conversation about how concerning it is, how important it is to get this next hire right, and to bring in someone that there's true belief in, so that it's not just the quarterback that gets behind this next hire, the whole organization. Right. Yeah. And so we were talking back and forth about a bunch of different things. And we started putting together a list. Like, it's not over. It's not like, yes, in recent history in the NFL, we're seeing some guys that fail in their first place that go to other places and have success. The two most obvious, Baker Mayfield, right?
Yep.
And bouncing around the way he did, landing in Tampa and really in two different coordinators, two different coaches over the past couple of years, the success he's had and continues even without Mike Evans, even without Godwin, like still seeing him play at that high level this past 2 weeks is remarkable. Right. Sam Darnold's the other one, bounced around. The Jets, disaster. Panthers, disaster. Goes in San Francisco, learns behind Kyle, right? And then
what about Goff too? I mean, Goff.
And I was going to get to him.
Okay, sorry.
But no, you're good. But those are examples of guys who have had to move around to find it.
Right.
We were talking about who are guys that have been able to find it. And I guess Goff was the first one we came up with. And I guess because it was that Goff was sent somewhere else. And McVay is a great coach. And
right.
McVay helped with Baker for a minute.
Right.
But McVay made it perfectly clear. I thought it was one of the more enlightening quotes, and I'm going to paraphrase. But when McVay made that trade in the Rams for Matthew Stafford, the quote, again, paraphrase, was, I'm looking for a partner, not a mentorship.
Right.
And so that made sense. That he knew what he needed, and he got that. And so Goff was kind of like, all right, move on after even make it to a Super Bowl. But with Ben Johnson, Goff has thrived.
Mm-hmm.
Give you a couple other examples just in recent history. Alex Smith,
right,
sputtering. His career is never going to be any good. Should have drafted Aaron Rodgers, same draft class, all of that. But he gets with Andy Reid in Kansas City, and they win a lot of games.
Yeah,
and he flourished. They was never going to take him to the promised land. They knew it. Brought in Patrick Mahomes. The rest is history. But Alex Smith is an example of just a new coach, and also, I guess, moving around. Tua Tagovailoa. The next two are prime examples of staying in the same place, getting the change in scenery, a change in coaching. Tua Tagovailoa with Mike McDaniel.
Okay. Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, Shane Steichen, Sirianni to a certain extent, how much you want to give him credit. But so I guess the point of the conversation was it's not like a lost cause, but there are also a lot of examples of guys that it just, if the organization doesn't get it right with that change, like the Jets with Darnold, like we can go, the list goes on, that it may require him going somewhere else. But that's why there's so much pressure on this Bears organization to get this thing right.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. You've invested this asset. I mean, again, and even the bigger picture, you spent 2 top 10 picks on offensive players. I mean, your quarterback is obviously A1. But you've invested now. And the other thing is, and we talked about this a lot too, is you want to win on your on your quarterback's rookie contract.
Yes.
Like, you cannot take your time here. This cannot be like, we're going to give Eberflus another year. There's just you cannot do it. You have to find the answer now. And look, and if you don't, then you're looking at a complete organizational reset again in 2 to 3 years. I mean, the pressure couldn't be any higher.
Yeah, you get to that year 5, and now all that money that you have for free agency, for other players, to pay other guys up who are playing well, who deserve to stay there.
Right. You start making tough decisions in year 5.
Tyreek Hill, got to go.
Yeah,
we got to get better on defense. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and
that was because we got to pay Mahomes, and we better, if we're not, it's Tyreek or build an entire defense, basically. I mean, it wasn't that simple, but it was.
Yeah,
it
Chris
was
Jones or Tyreek. You keep it Chris Jones or Tyreek.
Right.
Those are the conversations you start to have as a front office when you're no longer paying your quarterback on a rookie contract.
But if developed properly, those are the good conversations that you hope your organization has to have. And with Brett Veach, the general manager, and Andy Reid, those were comfortable they were difficult, they were hard decisions to make, but there was a level of confidence in what they had done to develop Patrick Mahomes and where he was in his process, and developing into, at the time, if not the best and the second best behind Tom Brady in terms of quarterbacks in the league. And so now we can trust him to carry an offense that doesn't have Tyreek.
Right. Because the alternative is who we're going to draft a quarterback next year. We can keep all these guys. It's great, but we still don't have an answer at quarterback. So yeah, obviously that's a great spot to be in. You're right.
All right. I mean, I don't know. I get fired up with this stuff. Like there's a certain level of attachment with these rookies that come into the league, and the amount of time that we have invested in a fraction of which, college scouting departments and NFL organizations and general managers invest in it as well. But to see a guy with that much talent struggle the way he has is hard to watch. It's hard to watch. It's what we do, and it's hard to watch. But I do think it's a good transition. Like anyone who's tuned into the show for the last, we're week 4, I think, of the show, and it's been a blast, and we love what we're doing. But I think some people are probably like, well, it's an NFL draft show. Where's the NFL? We focus a lot on college football, and that's what we're going to do. But I also for the last decade plus, I've been traveling to NFL or to college games on Thursdays and missing a good portion of the Thursday night game, traveling back on Sundays and missing a good portion of NFL games. I love this new gig.
Yeah.
I'm home.
That's gotta be nice
I'm watching games, studying more tape. And so like the NFL stuff is coming. Like, I think we have a lot to get into, deeper dives on these rookie quarterbacks. I think we have, like, how about watching, and I know they lost last night, Monday Night Football against Miami, but how about watching the Rams and our good friend Les Snead, and watching what that scouting department. And I just think of like the area scouts and then the national scouts and then the cross checks of these scouts and deciding to land on 2 defensive linemen that were 2 of the toughest, best tape guys, like motors revving, physical players, and to bring both of them in from the same school, put them on the same defensive line, and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, and to watch those guys, like the way they've played and transformed that Rams defense. And I know last night, again, was a loss, but Verse was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been
as good as advertised.
Yeah. So we got to, I guess my point is this. I also want to react. I don't know if you saw Bill Belichick came out. He put a lot of time and effort into it. Offense, defense, special teams, his midseason rookie report, and he threw in some second-year players who didn't play much as rookies. Circumstances.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a lot more of that. Get into NFL games as we get down the stretch, especially when the college football regular season and championship ends. When we get that lull in the college football schedule before the playoffs start. There's a lot of NFL stuff that we're going to get to, and it's how we always work, in our little scouting department, if you will.
Right.
You get into late in the season, a lot more focus on NFL. What are the team needs? Who's moving? Who's going to be moving in free agency? What's the draft order? So there's a lot to get in the NFL. I'm sure we'll have a lot of help from our friends at FanDuel. We'll start looking at games. We'll get into the playoffs. So there's a lot to get into in the NFL. But for now, the focus is clearly on this race in college football, and throughout the season, we've profiled some other top quarterbacks and some other top prospects.